All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Play It Forward. Today we have filmmaker, writer, director Mark J. Blackman talking about Wax. He is a London-based filmmaker, short films, commercials, and music videos. And he was nominated by Asim Vasic, a Serbian filmmaker living in Paris, and Mark is with us today from London. So, Mark, thank you so much for making it happen. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
So, if you guys haven't seen Mark's film yet, Wax, check it out. He made it 5 years ago, so it's a project that he's moved on from quite a bit. So it's going to be interesting to see what your, looking back on it, hindsight perspective is today. So the first question is, why did you make the film?
I think at the time, even though it's only 5 years ago, it feels like quite a way. I think we were looking for something we could kind of throw together fairly quickly that was sort of a strong, visually driven idea that didn't rely on having too large a crew, and just something that we could sort of keep frosty at. We had a couple of bigger projects that we were developing, but they were going to take a little while to raise the finance and sort of get all the pre-production sorted. So we were looking for a smaller project that we could put into production fairly quickly. Post wouldn't take forever, and there was a sort of contained piece that sort of played to sort of the visual strengths that we were pushing towards. And then I think I can't remember it called out if I stumbled across Kevin Pacey, who'd written the script, but I think it was on Shooting People, which is sort of an online networking bulletin. And yeah, sort of chatted with him, read the script, loved it, and kind of cracked on from there. Really, it was quite a smooth transition from sort of reading the script. Had a couple of sort of, I don't know, well, maybe we didn't even have any changes if I remember. I think the changes came about in post rather than the script, but we were sort of very much on the same page and sort of gunned it forward from there.
It's a really smart piece. I mean, technically it's like pulled off to the nines. When I found out that you also edited it,
Yes.
that even, more goes to your credit in terms of props. I mean, really well done there.
Thank you.
Definitely the color correction is beautiful on it. So, I mean, it's a great showcase in terms of, hey, here's how you can. Did you guys shoot it in a day?
Yeah, one day.
So,
One short day as well. Child laws, you can only shoot for a certain amount of time, so we had to rattle through it pretty quickly.
So a really smart way to showcase your talent and just say, hey, here's something that we can break off in a day. It's not going to cost us much, if anything, and here's what we can do. So, I mean, you guys definitely accomplished that, and I think that's a great piece to have other filmmakers emulate that. How do we do it low budget, go in there, really focus in on the meat, which is the visual quality, the story, deliver that short, sweet, and get out and really move people. So, you guys definitely did the job there. So hats off. The second question is, and this is a bucket that you can pick from, okay? So it's all question number 2, all right? So did it turn out as expected? What was the most challenging or memorable?
I think kind of tonally, it sort of came out as expected. I think Kevin had written a script that, he didn't sort of offer any answers, and we didn't go into it saying it was about this or that. Everyone on the production sort of had their different views on what it was sort of commenting on. But I think I'd done a lot of films before that, and sort of by that point when I was doing stuff, I was kind of very comfortable knowing that things always change. You cast the film, it changes.
Right.
In pre-production, the locations change everything. The shoot changes everything. The edit changes everything. So there was a million different little changes, but I think the core concept of what we wanted to achieve was that sort of remained the same, the sort of the heart of the piece. In terms of the most challenging thing, I think it was shooting inside the car. I think we, the DP, I'd sort of end up operating most of the stuff inside the car because he was quite a tall guy, and just couldn't really get in there and get the angles without being a contortionist, basically. And I'm quite short, so it sort of made sense. But and And I think with the actor, I think he was very much more comfortable with sort of, me directing him with the camera in hand rather than, me directing to the DOP who's then sort of trying to relay the information.
I'm sorry, Mark, to cut you off. Can you turn down your speaker a little bit? We're getting some feedback on our end.
How's that? Any better?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
Thanks a lot, man. I'm sorry. So you were saying you had to grab the camera and go in there. That's like a great example of, DIY hustle.
Yeah, massively. I mean, that was the only thing. We just worked out he was kind of too tall to fit in the car with the angles we needed. So it was sort of, there was a lot of adaptation going on in there, but it all worked to the benefit. It all sort of helped push it forward.
He did a great job. Props to the cinematographer and the sound design, because I mean those three pieces, right? They really made the film, as well as of course the actors. In terms of when I saw the camera that you guys work with, it's a very accessible camera, and you guys push that to the max, and the image is just beautiful. So you guys did a really great job there. So you talk about, this isn't part of the third question, okay? So I'm going to throw in another question on you, but this is a follow up on the second question.
Sure.
You talk about change, and I think it's really so important. Whether you're making a film, whether you're working on any project, whether you're in business, big businesses, everybody's trying to change culture, react to change, respond to change. How do you as a filmmaker respond to change on the set when the pressure's on, the lights are on, and things are breaking down? How do you keep your cool, and what do you do with that change?
I've been on other people's sets prior to sort of doing this and seen a lot of people have sort of meltdowns because things aren't necessarily how they planned or storyboarded or it's just not going their way. And I've always sort of really embraced sort of doing the opposite, which is if you've got change happening, kind of roll with it. I think if you've done your homework and you know where you want to get to step by step in a film, obviously you've got a million different steps between those sort of the major set piece bits, as it were. That's something I actually enjoy if it's not what we planned, to be perfectly honest, because you find in that chaos you might find a more elegant solution, or you might find something that really allows you to say what you were trying to say but better. It doesn't always work that way. I mean, there's a lot of instances where it's trouble, it's problem solving in the worst possible way. But when things are sort of, I always go in with a sort of production Bible, and it's, God forbid, if anything sort of happened to me sort of on the way onto the shoot, if everyone's got that production Bible, they can pretty much, tick off the shots without me there, sort of down sort of lens size and distance and timing with dialogue and all this sort of stuff. But whenever I'm on set, I kind of use that as something that we refer to if we get stuck. It's something to sort of fall back on, and I kind of encourage, I always encourage improvisation. I always encourage, testing out sort of different camera angles that we hadn't. If you see something there and then that really works better than what you'd intended, be it performance, be it someone else has suggested putting a camera on the other side of the line, whatever, I always kind of roll with that. If it's a better idea, it's a better idea, and you've got to let those happy accidents play out, because if it makes the piece stronger, it makes the piece stronger, and at the end of the day, I think it was John Ford who said you cultivate accidents on set, but it's true.
You cultivate what?
You can plan to death, but it's nice to sort of, allow those sort of little magical moments to kind of sort of happen. So
did you say you cultivate accidents? Did you say you cultivate accidents?
Yeah.
That's great.
Like accidents, something changes all of a sudden that you want to roll with. You stick with it. It's nice.
That's great, man. So two key takeaways there for the audience is, number one, do your homework, and number two, step into that chaos.
Yeah. And
take away those happy accidents. That's awesome. So
massively. I think you've got to go in there and have answers to everything, but also, I always say, like, if you don't know the answer to something, don't be afraid to say that. I just did a film with a wonderful actor who sort of massively experienced sort of older thespian, and there was one moment, he said, "What do you want me to do for this shot?" And I didn't have an answer and said, "I really don't know," because there was a production issue. We were sort of dealing with a load of stuff. And he loved how honest I was about that, and not sort of giving him some BS answer where it's like, "Oh, we'll do this and that." I just said, "I don't know. Can you just give me something?" And he was like, "I'll give you 3 different things. We'll see what we can do."
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. There's a real shortage of I don't know. And I think I don't know creates trust and transparency, you know, and when you say that to your actor, they're just going to trust you more as a director, you know.
100%.
That's beautiful, man.
You know, I don't think enough people do it. I mean, I've worked with a lot of editors and DOPs. They've got stuck before, and you know, if you know they're stuck, you can help them out. And that's, you know, it's the same as director. You try and have every answer, but you can't necessarily always have them. So just if you're honest about it, people will help you out if you've got a good crew around you.
That's awesome. And before we move on to question number 3, how well, or when you say doing your homework, what is your homework?
It's kind of changed over the years. It used to be, I used to storyboard meticulously, and I can't draw particularly well at all. And you know, the amount of time and effort you put into them didn't always kind of correlate to sort of the, you know, good results. I think the problem with storyboards, personally, when I've seen a lot of people do it as well, is so much effort and time goes into them. People are very reluctant to let them go. So if they do want to lose a shot, or if they have to lose a shot, they're very reluctant because they put that effort in there. You know, they're very tied into it. And obviously it helps with sort of VFX and sort of production design and stuff. But I always go in with a massive shot list instead of a storyboard, which is, I've always had a very strong editing background. It's kind of almost written as an edit list as much as it is a shot list. It sort of explains how it pieces together. And it's effectively like a checklist of shots to get through. And as I've kind of got older and sort of more confident with sort of what it is I'm sort of trying to do from production to production, and it's something that someone asked me today, funnily enough. To be honest, I just kind of let the film percolate in my head for a long time. I shot list, you know, I do a few passes of the shot list. I rehearse extensively with the actors so they know what it is we're trying to do emotionally. But I don't necessarily do too many rehearsals for dialogue. I kind of like to keep them a little fresh and a little bit on edge on the day. You know, obviously we go through it to make sure it sounds great. You know, if they've got suggestions for how they want to change dialogue or what sounds better, you know, that sort of environment encourages that. But yeah, mainly it's kind of letting the film play out in my head a million times in pre-production, and then, you know, that's where all the answers come from. I sort of listen to a lot of music when sort of preparing for stuff to sort of get a rhythm in my head as how scenes should play out, and then usually ignore that once we get into the edit, because you have a different rhythm that the actors have given that you didn't expect in a good way. So yeah, really thinking the film to death is the main thing. So that you go in on set and you go, I know exactly how we're going to shoot this, you know, and you can just barrel straight into it. You don't go in sort of, you know, scratching your head and wondering. And yeah, you know, massive prep with the DOP, production design. Recently I've been bringing in composers during the script writing stage, or just towards the end, to kind of get a bit of a feel from them.
You mean musical composers?
Because sometimes they can kind of get a little bit, you know, not necessarily score, but kind of some sort of soundscapes that, you know, really kind of fit the mood that you're trying to sort of achieve, and you play that to the actors, and then they kind of get a sense of what it is you're aiming for. We just did that on our most recent one. We had a piece of music the composer made, and we sort of played it to the production team, and they sort of really understood. It was a much more kind of almost comic booky film in some ways, sort of a bit of an anime sort of sound to stuff. So
that's a great
that sort of helped
tip.
them get their head around it, which was cool. So yeah, I mean, it's, you know, a million different things. It's sort of having all those conversations as, you know, for as long as you can, which is always never long enough. You know,
I was just going to say, how much time do you like to give yourself? I was just going to say, how much time do you like to give yourself?
Oh, it depends. I mean, we've normally, I mean, it depends on the scale of the project. I mean, I've done some projects that have been a week of pre-production, because it's sort of they've been short film music videos that have been sort of paid for by a label or a performer or a group. And, you know, they want to shoot it next week, so you've got to throw it together super quickly, and you've got no time to prep. That's one side of things. The other side is, I think the longest we've prepped for a production was last year for something we shot at the beginning of this year, which I think was about 6 months worth of pre-production. But that's not full-time. We're sort of juggling post on sort of another short film at the time, prep on another 2 short films at the time, and sort of the day jobby sort of elements, because so I do a lot of corporate and documentary work, so there's a lot of shoots and things interrupting that. But I think if you were to kind of condense that time, it's probably, that was a 15-minute short, I think probably about a month of pre-production if it was, if it was all day, day in, day out, which is good. But yeah, sometimes it's massively reduced, which, is quite nice sometimes, because you just have to sort of, you go in with blind faith and dive in and just go, right, we'll start shooting on Monday, something, I don't know what. And then, inspiration strikes at the weirdest times, and you don't sleep much. But yeah, it can work out, it usually does.
That's cool, man. Well, so now for question number 3, okay? This is the standard format question that's coming up for you, okay? So what did you learn, or what would you do different on wax?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think everyone who we sort of worked with, for the most part, were first-timers who hadn't sort of met prior to the shoot, so the producer hadn't met the DP, same with makeup, stuff like that. I think that was a bit of an, not an issue, but, people take a little while to warm up, so I think it's always good to, any production I've done sort of in the last 5 years, you get everyone together in a pub or a coffee shop, and you just, get them used to each other, even if it's just knowing what each other looks like. It's not, who's the makeup, who's the DOP, people always asking that on the day. It just wastes everyone's time a little bit. And I think at the time, I certainly wasn't as confident with actors as I was then, and it was the first time working with sort of child talent as well. And that was an eye-opener. I think trying to sort of gauge his energy levels throughout the day was something that was completely new to me. I'd sort of never, and it was something I'd never considered. Is, kids get hyper and then they crash, and they get excitable and then they're bored. So I think in hindsight, that's the main thing I would have changed, is kind of maybe kind of almost shot the film before we shot the film with the kid, to sort of work out, so he had an idea of what we were trying to do a little more, but also so I could kind of gauge his interest levels throughout sort of, if you're filming for an hour, then that 30 minutes in he's getting fed up, so it's good to kind of spin the camera around and shoot the other actor doing something while he goes off and plays Game Boy for a little bit or something. Yeah, I think that'd be the main thing, is sort of, if I could go back to sort of working with talent in a different way. But I've sort of done a lot with a lot of documentary content with kids since, and that's all, that all went really, really well, and that's based on what I learned on doing wax, to sort of give yourself that time to get them to sort of, have the trust in you as well. It can be quite intimidating with the younger talent. So I think, a bit of a warm-up period is always a really good idea, and that's the main thing.
That's great. That's awesome. So it's warm up with your talent, and have the crew warm up with one another.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great. And Mark, I feel we wouldn't be doing the film justice if we didn't look up what's going on with the world's water shortage. So I'm going to do a quick screen share, and I'll show you some quick stats. These are top stats that I found from a very quick search, and maybe you can tell us your thoughts about this and what you learned shooting going on. All right. See yourself here in a second. Speaking of water.
Yep, got to be done.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. You should be seeing yourself momentarily.
Yep, there's me.
All right, cool. And I'm going to hide this. Let's go here. And here's what's going on. 1 in 10 people lack access to safe water. This is from water.org. 1 in 3 people lack access to a toilet. I mean, that's crazy. We've got 663 million people, and 1 in 10, 663 million people, that's 1 in 10 out of 7.5 billion on the planet. 1 in 10 lack access to safe water. 2.4 billion people, 1 in 3 lack access to a toilet. I mean, that is mind-numbing stats here that, we in the first world populations don't realize. Here's demographics, world population is total numbers of humans currently living as of August 2016. So we got 7.4 billion, and the UN expects by 2100 11.2 billion. That's quite the 30% increase or more. And then we've got some more water crisis facts here. By 2025, an estimated 1.8 billion people will live in areas plagued by water scarcity. And those areas aren't too far from home. The red areas indicate the highest level of threat. So what do you think of those stats? Are you surprised at those? Are you familiar with them?
It's not really, no. I've sort of done a lot of shooting in the Middle East and in a lot of sort of poorer climate sort of countries, and you see the sort of struggles that people have to get, you know, either sort of sanitation or clean water, and sort of the lengths they go to get what we take for granted. I mean, I sort of, lucky is the wrong word, but I've sort of seen it firsthand while sort of filming for documentaries, and it is just the most shocking thing that what they take for granted is a mission to get hold of something that we take for granted on such a daily basis. It's kind of a, you know, it's a crazy thing. It's and that was something that we really wanted to sort of try and do with Wax. I think that was always the strength, was keeping it in a suburban setting. You know, in England in summertime, you know, if you go out to the suburbs, you see loads of people constantly cleaning their cars. I mean, I don't own a car, I don't have a car to clean, but if I did, you know, unless you're driving through a dust bowl and you've got, I don't know, you're driving the Queen the next day or something, there's no point in keeping it clean. It drives me balmy. I think that was always something that the script reflected really, really well, was that sense of sort of suburban privilege that people have when it comes to, you know, hosing down cars with a hose pipe sort of, you know, once every week sort of thing. Is kind of crazy. And I think you know, obviously with the population explosion being what it is, and not slowing down and actually getting faster each year, it's an inevitable issue. It's the same as sort of food shortages. You know, there's actually not enough food to feed the people who are here, let alone the people who keep on reproducing. So it's it's a messed up situation and a half.
Well, Mark, thank you for raising awareness in that respect, and thank you for joining us today. Thanks for some great tips. I think there's a lot of great stuff that we can, you know, really use, implement, and walk away with on our next shoots. So definitely thank you for your service, brother.
Cool, pleasure, enjoyed it.
And we will wrap up. Guys, Mark J. Blackman with us today from London, going on, what, after 10 o'clock, working 24/7, like filmmakers do.
It's always a long one, every night.
Every night, Mark. Thanks for hustling. Mark, thank you so much, man.
Take care, dude.
All right, you be good. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Till next time.